What are the prospects for sensible gun control?
Let's see, go Susan first.
Absolutely. I think we just have to have leaders who are willing to stand up and say exactly where they stand on gun control. And I'll tell you, about a minute and a half after I declared that I was running for office, I received a phone call from a friend who said, "Can my husband talk to you?" I said, "Sure." And he got on the phone and he said, "Are you coming to take my guns?" And I said, "No." If I had known him a little bit, I might have said something else. But I'm not coming. There's no reason why we don't have a lost and stolen gun law. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. There's no reason why why people cannot have guns, use them sensibly, but why we can't have true control over the illegal gun trafficking, why we can't do something more so that people are safer. The straw purchasing for guns is a significant problem. Lost and stolen guns law would do an awful lot, but for some reason our legislature is not ready or willing to make that commitment.
Well, Pennsylvania is a very diverse state, and what sells in Chester County doesn't necessarily sell in Tioga or some of the other counties around the state. We're going to have right now we're scheduled to have a pretty robust debate on this subject on Monday. We have a bill that basically is referred to as the Castle Doctrine, which expands the protections of liability from someone who feels that they're protecting themselves with the use of their firearm. And attached to that bill, I know already of some, and I think there are going to be quite a number of gun control pieces of amendments that are going to be proposed at the same time for the same bill. And there's already a significant amount of lobbying. I'm getting a lot of mail already on that subject. I've been pretty consistent in saying that I think I look at each one of these suggestions, look at how they're crafted, and try and understand whether or not they're going to actually advance the cause of trying to reduce gun violence in a practical way, and that I do respect the idea that some people feel very strongly about guns for hunting, for collection, for sport, and for personal protection. And it's a matter of balancing that legitimate concern for those that are trying to follow the law and behave properly with trying to thwart the criminals that are trying to get around the existing gun laws and also abuse firearms in a way that is threatening to all of us. And each one of these is complicated. We have to take it on a case-by-case basis. But I respect the idea that we need to reduce gun violence and make our streets safer. And obviously some feel very strongly about their what they see to be their Second Amendment rights. So when you ask a prognostication about where bills are going to go, it's always difficult because the system is such that we have to work with people from different parts of the state who don't see this the same way we do.
There's several people here.
Does the gentleman down front who had his hand up first?
You've been mentioning a number of issues. I'm a new resident of Pennsylvania. I will vote in November. It gives me 1 month to identify what the key issues are, and I'd appreciate hearing from each of you what you consider the 3 most important issues that I ought to be concerned about.
Well, first, I think we've got to do everything we can to improve the economic condition and create good quality jobs here in Pennsylvania. That's going to be the first step to getting the monies back flowing again among the economy, among all of you, and secondly, to begin to restore the revenues back to the state as well. So that's number one. Good quality jobs in fields that are growing, such as the ones I mentioned earlier, biotech, green energy, and other things that are diversifying Pennsylvania's economy. Secondly, obviously, reestablishing our priorities in a new reality, in a new economy where we have several $1 billion less of funds available. How are we going to disperse those funds so that we meet our key priorities, the key functions of government? That's going to be a critical issue that we're going to have to face next year. And thirdly, I think dealing with the pension crisis has been brought up earlier, but we have to reorient the state on that. Now, it's always tough. It's like telling you which of my children are my favorite. I'm not going to do that either. But we have to continue to work on the environment. I've worked very hard on changes to the electricity market and how we might be able to promote more conservation and get competitive in that area. There are a lot of subheadings on each of those, but I would say the economy and jobs, the budget, and the pension crisis are probably the top three right now that we need to address.
Stimulating innovation and jobs in Pennsylvania is going to be a huge piece of that, and that's something that we need to look at. Government can't create jobs, but we can make the climate better for companies that are willing to be in Pennsylvania, and then they will create the jobs. We need to really bring transparency and accountability to our government. That will bring a better sense of working together. We'll know that everyone's working together if they can see the government is looking at how we're doing things, being open and being responsive to people. And we need to reduce our government waste. I think the big pieces will be jobs. It'll be reducing waste and no big contracts and sweetheart deals. And it'll be, I guess, really, my biggest piece is really clean, transparent government is going to be a big piece for us.
Another question? Raise your hand.
I want to go back to the gas drilling. I am alarmed and I am scared. Can you hear me? Yeah. What's going on? There's this tremendous rush and the talk about how much money, big business, and there are not enough inspectors.
Please make a question.
The question is, this is already ballooning into this incredible drilling, and how can we get control over it to some point where environmentally, I don't see how you can drill safely.
Please keep your question rather than a statement.
My question is, how can we at this point get some control over the regulation and to make it a safer way of doing this?
Okay, I'm going to ask since we have a question on this before, I'm going to ask each of you to just give sort of a 1-minute nugget on what you think the most important thing to do in this area is. And maybe first, Susan.
We need to have our regulations strong enough and enough regulators. DEP was cut by 28% in the last few years, and I understand that they're saying that our regulations are doing better, but I can't imagine. I do not believe that they're strong enough yet. We need to know that they're stronger. We need to know that there are true teeth to these regulations so that DEP can shut down drillers that are bypassing the regulations that are in place, and we need to at the same time be building solid regulations that are evaluated frequently.
Actually, one of the key elements in how we've been handling this is the fees that are charged per permits, and that number has been ramped up, and it's increased the number of designated inspectors. So although there were cuts to the rest of the DEP budget, this is an area where there's been substantial increase because we recognize we needed more inspectors. Many, many more inspectors have come into the field within the last year. There's a tremendous increase and focus and review at the Department of Environmental Protection, which is run by a man who was in charge of Penn Future, one of the key environmental groups in the state, up until the time he became secretary. And I know him personally. I know he's very seriously committed to protecting the environment. So although there's a lot of fear, and I understand anxiety, because this is a rapidly expanding area, this kind of drilling is not new. It's been done for many, many years. It's even done to free up underground water supplies. So it's not an innovation. It's new to us here in Pennsylvania, but it's been around for 40 or 50 years. So we know how it needs to be done properly. We will continue to review what's going on to make sure that that the inspectors are doing their job properly. We're going to keep an eye on the regulations, but they have been beefed up, and also wells have been shut down. Operations have been shut down, and heavy fines have been levied. Also, substantial bonding is being required to put them in a position where they got some skin in the game so they behave themselves.
Thank you. We have one more question, and then we'll move to final statements. And once again, we can stay a little bit after if there's some specific issues that you need to talk about. So we have a question here.
With reference to a remark that Representative Ross made earlier, where would you increase funding for social services, and in relative terms, by how much?
So, Chris?
Okay. Human Services Development Fund in particular, and it isn't a huge amount that needs to be increased, but some. I think we've got to rationalize and focus our job training to make sure, as we're creating these new jobs, that we have people properly trained and transitioned away from jobs that are disappearing into jobs that are growing. I think those are the two key areas. But the Human Services Development Fund deals with homelessness, deals with domestic violence, deals with a variety of other kinds of services. We've cut our libraries unconscionably at the same time that we're increasing education funding. We need to restore some of the funding there, too, because, again, people use libraries at a time of crisis like this to find jobs and to support themselves. Those are some of the key areas. We're not talking huge amounts of money here. We're talking, in the grand scheme of things, a few $1 million in several of these funds, which would go a long way. We have the Department of Welfare, although it needs to cut overall because they've been very loose in dispersing funds to some of the individuals without proper check. The staff at the Thorndale office has been on a freeze for now, I guess, going on 2.5 years. They're down 10 to 15% at the same time that they're being asked to cover many, many more claims. So it's very hard to get them on the phone. Unemployment comp, in that area, that's another area where the personnel has been cut to the point where they're not keeping up with their work. So those are a couple of the areas in particular. We're probably talking tens of millions of dollars, and the cuts are in the nature of billions of dollars. So just to give you a general sense.
Human services is a piece that our government needs to take seriously. The cuts that have occurred are significant and important. We have wait lists for services that are literally 20 to 30 years long for people with disabilities. We have, and yet we have huge amounts of waste in other areas. We need to truly look at our priorities, and I honestly don't have all the answers. I know that there are organizations like the Pew Charitable Trust, like Franklin and Marshall. There are companies, there are organizations that have looked at it and can provide us good, solid programs and systems and methods to follow so that we can have the best pieces available in Pennsylvania. And I'd love to see us working towards those.